Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the midweek pod before the West Virginia game. We are gathered around the fire, enjoying some fall weather, some cigars, some drinks. It's fun. We are out under the stars. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Jay.
Lucas.
And as always, the midweek pod is brought to us by Fluke Luke Fishing. It's a YouTube channel. Fluke Luke Fishing brings you feel-good fishing content and honest reviews of equipment and tackle. Please go watch, like, and subscribe. Fluke Luke Fishing. Thank you to Fluke Luke for his sponsorship. Let's get into it, guys. We've had a few days to digest and sort of get used to our station in life as a 7-2 team that is struggling with an offensive coordinator that people are very unsure about, to say the least.
Not according to our poll.
Not according to our poll. So that's a great point. Let's bring up the poll and see exactly what the audience had to say about what we thought was a pretty apropos question, which is, when should Jeff Lebby's employment at OU be terminated? Immediately, at season's end, not sure, but by mid-January, it shouldn't be. Well, 40% said it shouldn't be. That was actually the plurality. But the majority was at some point between or among the three different choices. So at season's end was 30%, immediately was 18%, and not sure but mid-January was 12%. I was actually a not sure but mid-January guy. Where were you guys?
I was in the immediate train, and I think I expressed it a little bit. I know we talked a little bit on the post game about worrying if it was an immediate fire, how it would have an effect on current recruits and stuff like that, and to wait until maybe signing day or after signing day, so that January timeframe maybe. Something that I know we talked a little bit about amongst ourselves this week. Even if Lebby were to leave after National Signing Day or get fired, I believe the rule is, and I haven't confirmed this, but I believe the rule is if your position coach that has recruited you leaves the program, you can basically get out of your national letter of intent and sign somewhere else at no, quote unquote, at no cost, right?
We can also look really bad as a head coach who wouldn't let players.
Yeah, they're going to let him out no matter what.
So I mean, I think, I don't know, unless. Here's the one caveat I would say to keeping Lebby, and again, something else we've alluded to. If he plays Jackson Arnold at any point over these 3 weeks in meaningful situations and shows that he can run an offense better than what he's ran with Dillon Gabriel, then there's an opportunity to say maybe there's something here. I don't think that's the case. I think what we said in the post game, what I've said on Twitter this week, Jeff Lebby has shown me nothing that has made me think he's going to progress to a point of being a top-level offensive coordinator right now, especially heading into the SEC. So I'll go back to what I said on the postgame. We're out of time to be able to try to figure this stuff out. Jay, you brought it up extensively. This is not a learn-on-the-job type of position that you can hold. And I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to put stuff together that he is wanting to experiment with himself and with the team, and it shouldn't be that way. We should have a foundation built after one season, and again, it's not 9 games, right? Yeah, one season and 9 games that is not there. There's no foundation to this offense. I don't know what we're built on. So I'm in the immediate category.
We've had 22 games to see what he could do. None of us are satisfied with it. Even if he's limited by Dillon Gabriel's arm strength and vision over the middle of the field like we've talked about for the last 2 years, his situational awareness isn't good enough, because every time we get something going in the running game, he does some stupid trick play. Every time we're actually starting to throw some intermediate passes, next thing you know, he's bringing in a running back that's touched the ball 10 times the whole season to take a direct snap, or
If not a receiver.
Yeah, or a receiver in the backfield. It's too broken up and not smooth. There's no flow to it, and I don't care who the quarterback is. even if you're limited with what you have, the play calling should still be better.
So
Yeah.
you're in the immediate category as well.
I'm end of season because I don't think
End of season. You don't think it'll happen.
unless Seth Luttrell or Emmett Jones or Matt Wells, one of those guys is in the top 3 that you're thinking of. If you're looking at going in house, or if you already have somebody in mind out, then you let Jeff Ledby finish if somebody from the outside's coming in.
Maybe not.
But if somebody's in house that you're looking at auditioning, then you do it now, which obviously it's Wednesday, so it's not happening this week. And with 2 games left, it's not going to happen this year. It's just not.
What
We
if-
could score 7
what
points
if-
this week, and he's not losing his job.
Okay.
I think for me, the initial emotional reaction after Saturday was, I wanted him to not even get on the plane, or the bus, I guess, because we didn't have to go that far. But thinking about it, I'm good with it the end of the season, only because we're technically not out of it yet. I think
That's fair.
if we were 100% had no chance at a Big 12 title, no chance at a 10-win type season, which even if you're not in the title, that's a decent season to build off of. I would say, absolutely get rid of him now and just find somebody else, move on with the youth, put Jackson Arnold in, who cares? But we technically still have a chance. And I think you have to go, no matter what, for that Big 12 title while you can.
No, I agree. I think that, and the reason I say I don't know exactly when, but it needs to happen, I feel like there is still a lot to play for. There is the backdoor opportunity for a Big 12 title. There's also the opportunity to have a big bowl win, to have a 10-win season where you can hang your hat on that. It's going to look better in the record books. It's going to look better to recruits. All of that stuff matters. It shows momentum. You also don't want to make it seem like, well, shoot, we lose 2 games and the whole thing, we just burn it down. So for the same reason that he probably should retain his job, you probably don't just say it's Jackson Arnold all the way. But I would like to see Jackson Arnold play a significant amount. I would like to see Jackson Arnold come in early in games still in doubt. I would like to see those packages that Brent promised us with Jackson Arnold back in the summer, to actually see those come to fruition now. And I'd like to see him get significant playing time down the stretch. I think that for Lebby and for the program and for recruits and for your existing offensive players that you've got to be worried about transfer portal issues, you have to be signaling what you intend to do. If you intend to keep him, if he wins and turns things around, you signal that. If you intend to replace him, you signal that. You need to be subtly or not so subtly letting people know, letting families know of recruits, here's what we want to do. Here's where this program is headed.
My kind of behind the scenes hope is that the current players, the young players, and the future high school recruits know that Jackson Arnold is on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that alone by itself doesn't derail, future commits or future hope for the program. Because they get to see stuff we don't get to see, right? They
Right.
get to see every day in practice. They get to see what he can actually do. And there's a chance, they're super stoked for next year. Not that they're
Current
giving up on
players.
this year. Yeah, current players. Not that they're giving up now, but they can see what next year and beyond could be.
I have a little trepidation with us pinning all of our hopes and dreams on Jackson Arnold because he was the Elite 11 winner. He was a Gatorade National Player of the Year. When we've seen him in sparing duty at OU games, he looks the part. Denton Geyer was on TV a bunch last year, so anytime he was on, I watched at least half the game, if not more. So he looks like the real deal, and that was against the highest competition in the state of Texas, which nationally is up there. Florida's probably the only one that even matches what Texas has.
Florida, California-esque type
And
stuff.
so I still have a little trepidation because we said the same things about Spencer Rattler. We were so stoked when Rattler was coming in that we were kind of like, when we got Jalen Hurts, we go, oh, is this going to hurt Rattler's improvement? Because he was expecting to start that year after Kyler, but the Hurts experiment was awesome to me, and I don't think it hurt Rattler's abilities down the road.
Well, it's easy to say
But
now.
he turned out to not be he's been a 4-year starter now, essentially. Well, 3.5-year starter, because he lost the job in 21. But seeing what he's doing at South Carolina isn't that impressive either. But he was the same high school All-American,
Yeah.
number 1, number 2 type quarterback. We put all our hopes and dreams on him being the guy, and we were let down. I really hope that we're not
I agree.
sitting here talking about Jackson Arnold as the savior of this offensive program, and little do we know we've just overhyped the whole thing.
We're not, though. We're not pinning all our hopes and dreams on Jackson Arnold.
That's kind of all you have in college football, though, isn't it? Right? You
The future
You
and the
hope
players
that
and all
all
that.
the fresh-
But we're not
young
pinning
guys
it all
coming
on
in.
Jackson Arnold. I don't think we pinned it all on Spencer Rattler. We pinned it all on an offense that was generational and prolific with Lincoln Riley at the helm, and then everything else. We did think that Spencer Rattler was going to be a lot better than he was. We think Jackson Arnold's going to be very good, but we're not saying that it's Jackson Arnold or bust. If I would say that's more true if we are saying no, stick with Lebby. He's going to be fine with Jackson Arnold. That's when you're pinning all your hopes on Jackson Arnold. I'm saying Jackson Arnold's got a chance to be really, really great, but it's going to take a different offensive coordinator to get there. So
Well,
I'm sort of pinning my hopes on a change.
Yeah, and here's how I kind of spin it too. If you look back at Rattler and that whole situation, part of me wonders if Lincoln knew that he missed on Rattler, which is why he went and got Hurts.
Absolutely.
And wanted to sit Rattler behind Hurts for a year, because put Jackson Arnold in this situation, and let's say Gabriel graduates after last year, Jackson's our clear number 1. We're not going to get someone else, I don't think.
I don't know. As a true freshman, we might have grabbed somebody in the transfer
We
portal
may have.
coming into this year.
Fair enough. There
We
was
may
a
have
lot, and
looked.
there was a lot of quarterbacks out there, right? Who were
They
looking
might have
for-
tried to bring
for
Mordecai
spots.
back. He transferred to Wisconsin.
I think I probably try, and maybe again looking back, I don't think the transfer portal, the transfer portal was not a thing back then. Hurts came in as a grad transfer. I think that's more of a signal that either Lincoln just doesn't want a freshman back there, trying to figure out things in a season that ended up being prolific, right, with such a good offense. But B, I really think that Arnold, I mean, if we go back to some of our conversations, I think Arnold put in the same situation as Gabriel's been in this year with this offense. I don't know if we're having the same conversations about Lebby per se, but I do think what we see from a winning perspective and our record, I don't know if our record's much different right now.
No. It might actually, honestly, I think it'd probably be a loss to Texas and a victory over Kansas and Oklahoma State.
I think that may be
I was getting ready to say
that might be a very likely scenario. So
And we might be giving a lot of excuses for Lebby, saying he's a freshman quarterback, he's making mistakes. I don't know. It'd be hard to say. If he's throwing the ball sideways and backwards as much as Dylan Gabriel does, I don't know at some point if it's very excusable.
Well, and at that point, you're wasting what seems to be
you
talent with
broken a
Jackson
guy.
Arnold, right?
Uh-huh.
We've seen Dylan Gabriel in his limitations. He has serviceable qualities that he can do outside of throwing the ball laterally and in dump off routes, but I don't think that it's to the caliber that we're going to end up seeing with Jackson Arnold, where he can go down the field and do some of the things that Dylan just can't. Simply.
And I think also Lebby can't do it. So, and this may be completely unfair because he's several years removed, but the caliber of program that UCF is and has been recently, is the kind of program where if you have a couple of extremely talented guys, you can exploit your opponents because they don't play in a very tough league before the Big 12, and it's still the Big 12, but they played a very lesser schedule. If you look at the first game this year for UCF, and I don't remember the kid's name, but that one guy ran for like 8,000 yards or caught balls for 8,000 yards. If you're Jeff Lebby in that offense, I see why you run a lot of jet sweeps to your fast guy and a lot of just throw the ball out laterally and let him make a break, because he's
better.
abusing guys that are not very talented.
Right.
And that same stuff doesn't work against even Big 12 caliber defenses, much less what you're going to run into in the SEC.
That's what I was, to kind of piggyback on that, I'm not sure that Jeff Lebby has figured out that we're the alpha.
Yeah.
And 99% of our opponents, particularly every season minus maybe Texas, we have the better athletes. We have the better personnel. He is still calling games like we've got to confuse, like we've got to trick people into what we're doing. We're going this way. We're not going that way. We're really doing a reverse, when we just need to line up and out-athlete these teams that we're playing.
Yeah.
Now, it's not always just that simple. I'm not saying you just can call a standard, 5 plays a game and beat Kansas. But at the same time, it probably takes a while for someone's mentality to change and realize, we're the alphas on this football field. Let's just do what we do and make them stop what we're doing.
And at the same time, it's not enough to say, if you're up against Kansas, Oklahoma State, to take the 2 teams that just beat us, you can't just get the ball to your fastest or one of your fastest players and expect they're going to have a whole lot of success, because you're playing against really good defensive talent. It's kind of like when guys go to the NFL and figure out, oh my God, these defenses are really fast. And the stuff that worked in college doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah, like I've got to set up my route right.
I've got to actually run, I've actually got to do a really good job. And it's got to be more complex, because all of a sudden they're in the backfield, they're challenging, they're stride for stride with those receivers. And that stuff that worked so easily before doesn't work that way anymore.
Well, you've seen, like you said, in the NFL with D.D. Westbrook, we thought would be an amazing NFL receiver. Didn't pan out, which Jacksonville was a crap show, so who knows there.
But he was running by guys here, right? Like he was just beating guys.
And he gets there and he can't do
that.
Hollywood Brown, same way. He's had a decent pro career, but not to the level that we all thought he would do when he went to the NFL, just speed-wise.
Yep, not for a Blitnikoff winner, yeah.
You're the best guy in your conference at running past guys, and then you go to the NFL, every one of those defenders was the best guy on their team, and a lot of them in their conference.
Yeah.
And you're running against those guys, and you don't have the speed advantage that you did, or the just the overall talent advantage. And that's what Lebby hasn't noticed, like Jay is saying. What the Sawchuk 64-yard touchdown was a simple run play that he just sprinted to the edge, and then bam, he was gone. And 18 of our 22 runs were up the middle?
Yeah, 18 of our 22 were between the tackles.
Between the tackles. And magically, one of those 4 that weren't was a 64-yard touchdown.
Yeah, and the other 3 that were outside of the tackles gained 21 yards total for an average of 7 yards per carry outside the tackles. And the inside run game was about 4.6 or something.
I mean, that's a huge difference in mindset of not that you have to run outside every single play, but you sure as heck don't need to run between the tackles every single play. Even if you're 4 yards a carry is reasonable, but when you can see, what drive was it that we had the Sawchuk touchdown?
First drive.
The first drive. Right. And then you really never go back to that the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not see in the third quarter, you go back to that and see what happens? Or
it makes me wonder if
on your 5th drive,
because
you go back
in his
and see if that works.
experience, anything that worked didn't work the next time, and he doesn't realize that things.
You mean jet sweeps?
Yeah, that things that they never worked. Or I guess it worked the very first time, right? So he goes back to the same. He wants to change it up because he thinks that anything that happens to have success, they're going to adjust for.
Yeah.
Except for Jeff Sweet.
And that's not always the case.
That's not always the case.
Yeah.
Exactly. They haven't figured it out yet, and they're not going to, because that you're exploiting the weakness. You're exploiting where we're the alpha. We have better athletes. We have it figured out. Just keep hammering that home.
We saw it at Kansas. We were completely stagnant on offense until the rain delay came. We spent an hour. We saw them run down from the press box and run into the locker room. They were in there for an hour. They come back out. We scored 21 points in
7 minutes?
7 minutes or something like that. And then you go in for halftime where both teams will be making adjustments again. And then it seemed like he didn't want to do any of the stuff that worked in that 7-minute span, which one of those was a fumbled kickoff. We had a short field.
Regardless,
Right.
score.
Yeah, but still, you had things that worked in that stretch, and then come crunch time, you're doing completely different stuff away from what possibly could have got you back and won the game.
He lets the game get to him, I think.
I think he's afraid of success.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. He almost goes into this shell of protection to say, oh my gosh, like, look at us with the lead. I've got to do something because we have the lead and we need to close it out. I don't know. It's just it's such a weird, if you watch it as a neutral fan, it's almost like he's throwing the freaking game. It's almost like, hey, like, let's make this as hard on ourselves
this tough all of a sudden
as we can
Yeah.
with a lead. And we can go back to the Texas game and look at that. I mean, we have the huge Quinn Ewers fumble at midfield where we can go up by, I think, 14 or 17 in the second half. Yeah, we're up by 10. And we could go and take a 17-point lead after that turnover. We go 3 and out. And because of
in 45
lackluster
seconds,
play
probably.
calling. Yeah, it's something like that,
Yeah.
seriously. So
Yep.
he just, I don't know. Steve, that's a really good way to put it in terms of just, it looks like a guy who doesn't know how to be successful and like a guy who just acts like he hasn't been there before. And
he hasn't.
You can't do that at a program like this.
No, you got to accept your status, which your status is really good, but go ahead and exploit it. I feel like he's
Put your foot
almost
on their throat.
afraid of the criticism that if he goes back to the well and it's not successful, which is so ironic because the jet sweep is exactly that. But anything else in the facet of the game where the jet sweep is a really safe thing. Throwing down the field and being aggressive is not. And time and again, we've seen and we've criticized how it doesn't look like he's willing to do stuff that's aggressive. That he's willing to do stuff that if it fails, it makes you look bad. Well, anything looks bad when it's failure. He doesn't get that. But he'll take the safe route versus the thing that's a little more aggressive, that if it works, it's a very successful part of the game, if not series. And then it's the criticism of he just doesn't seem to have a rhyme or reason to what he's doing. It's like he's randomly pulling stuff out of a hat, out of that Rolodex, and he's taken most of those cards out, and he's just going to use these 5 or 6. And it's just the weirdest assortment of things that don't seem to go together, along with player assignments. So let's get to that a little bit. We do not have this confirmed, but we have it under a little bit of inside scoop that there may be some dissension going on, whereby DeMarco Murray is somewhat frustrated by being hamstrung in who he can play, that he's mad about who he has to play in the rotation. And it would lend itself to some credibility in terms of comparing what we're doing this year versus what we've seen DeMarco Murray do in previous years if he's the one in charge of who's playing, and that is go to running backs and get them into a rhythm previously, and this year not at all.
He's had guys in the past. He's had his guy in the past. Last year, Eric Gray. The year before that, which, I mean, it may be obvious, but Kennedy Brooks. He's had a running back. We don't have a running back. We can say Tawee Walker is that all we want, but we're still rotating.
We're still rotating we're rotating in Smothers over Hicks, Smothers over
When's
some
the
of the
last
others.
time
Wide receivers
Smothers-
over
Wide
Hicks.
receivers over, yeah.
When's the last time Smothers got in a game?
I bet it was 4 games
Arkansas
back.
State, or did he come in
No,
Tulsa?
he was in like.
No, he didn't make the trip to Tulsa, I don't think.
He was in against like Iowa State, I think.
Late
Yeah,
in the blowout.
So I mean, it wasn't. He wasn't in there getting. No, he did. He did play at Tulsa. Hicks didn't travel to Tulsa because Smothers
right.
had one of the best runs at Tulsa at the end of the game.
So we're going to work to confirm these rumors, but they come on fairly good authority. It would tend to make sense that somebody's making a big mistake in terms of personnel. And it's at running back we've seen personnel questionable, crazy, what's going on. With Stogner, we see craziness, and I'm going to just go ahead and name some names to a degree. If I were Jeff Lebby, and I am concerned about the relevancy of my best friend, Joe John Finley, and he coaches only tight ends, I'm going to make sure the tight end is in all the time. Or even if I don't actually feel like I'm doing that manipulatively, I might think, and Joe John comes to me and says how great Stogner is, sure, that's automatic. I'm not even going to question if Stogner should be in there. I'm going to put him in place, and we're going to work around that with everyone else. That seems to be what they're doing.
Well, and even, I mean, how limited, I mean, if DeMarco's not the only one limited in this, right? I mean, if you go that route, how limited is Emmett Jones and the personnel that he's running out there? When he's saying, if he's wanting Brennan Thompson out there running routes and we're not going to that or something along those lines. And you go back to the tight end situation, that whole thing is just, it's off.
Baffling.
So, I mean, you have a tight end that's tweeting during the game, responding to a tweet that says, how is Austin Stogner the only or the best tight end that OU has? And a dissenting tight end, Llewellyn, tweeting, like HM period, during the game. So, I mean, there's that Brent Venables has done such a good job of defining a culture that you go back to that original press conference, elite, and I'm not saying we're elite, but a suffocating, relentless, physical defense. I think he's
a vision.
He's establishing that vision, right? We can see that. Like there's a path. Transcendence and a path that's happened from year 1 to year 2 where we're at. The same message needs to be going through the offense. And we're with stuff like that, that's some Lincoln Riley BS. Mm-hmm. That's some previous regime. My ego is bigger than the team itself, and I'm going to make this about me. And you need to be instilling those same values on the defensive side on the offensive side. There's no excuse for, and again, that goes back to Brent Venables. He is the head coach of this football team. He's a defensive guy, but the buck needs to stop with him in terms of saying, if Lebby's not instilling the culture that he needs on the team, Venables needs to do that for him.
Well, I'm going to go back to something that Jay and I talked about. Jay, you brought up this point that he is obviously leaning towards the defense. That's natural. That's his home base. And that's fine. What he needs in terms of an offensive coordinator is somebody he can completely trust and turn the reins over to. And you really need someone who is a very, very good offensive coordinator. Usually means it's somebody that's going to be a very experienced veteran offensive coordinator, and probably be nice if somebody has some head coaching experience, because he is not able to, or wanting to, at least not in this season or last season, devote any amount of sufficient time to be I split my time between the offense and defense head coaching job. He's had to be integral to the defense and getting it where he wants to be. He deserved, and probably wanted an offensive coordinator who he could just turn the reins over to and trust. And unfortunately, I think he's missed in Jeff Lebby. It hasn't been the guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. The entire offense has just been jumbled from the get-go. I mean, I love Farouk. Why is he the one running 3 go routes against Oklahoma State? Mm-hmm. He's not a burner. That's not what he does. Why does Gibson get 1 snap versus Oklahoma State, and he's lined up at the running back position?
Yeah, 1 snap, and he was a running back.
In the fourth quarter of Bedlam. I mean, who comes to that decision? Like, hey, let's get Gibson on the field. Okay, great. Win. Fourth quarter crunch time.
All right,
what position? Running back. Let's roll with it. This is beautiful. Like, how do you get to that point at all?
What's the thinking?
With any personnel whatsoever?
What's the logic?
It makes no sense.
Yeah, why are you that deep into your playbook?
Yeah.
There's no freaking reason. You're not up by 40-something points and trying something out.
Or down by 40.
You're not down by 40. You're not running the offense with Jackson Arnold. You are trying to win a game.
Why is Brennan Thompson, who could be a very great player at some point in time, but he is a vertical threat, period. Why is he the go-to guy
On a stop
on a
route.
4th and 7 pass across the middle of the field?
In traffic.
It made no sense.
Kill me.
So much of
Kill
it makes
me.
no sense. And I don't think, I think a lot of the fan base is seeing it at least out of frustration. I don't think they're seeing it necessarily at the detail that we're seeing it. Some people are definitely seeing it and questioning it. I hear other people and talk to others, though, that almost seem some combination of apologetic for Levy or granting and conceding too much. It really frustrates me.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of, well, this offense is, 25th in the country in efficiency, or, all these stupid statistics. To
I was
me,
even higher than I think we're 7th in the country in total offense.
I mean, I see with my own eyes that the offense isn't working, and the only number that matters is points scored. And I don't care if we're 7th or 10th or 15th or whatever the number is in efficiency, it's not real. Because when we've only scored in the 40s once in conference play, and that was against Iowa State, we scored 50, and that was with a defensive touchdown. So really we scored 43, let's say, on offense. Do we have
42.
40? Well, we got
43, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because we have the safety.
Yeah.
So we had a safety. So that's
Safety,
a defense.
it's
Yeah.
41.
So we scored 41 points on offense. That's the only game we've scored in the 40s in conference the entire season.
And more relevant even,
In a
to
conference
make
that's
it worse.
not crazy. It's not a crazy defensive conference.
No, and beyond that, we're not holding opponents to 10 points.
Yeah.
That'd be different if you're winning 42 or 34 to 10. Then maybe we got something.
Yeah.
But you're going down the stretch, and you're actually having to deep into the fourth quarter play a game against UCF that you might lose. Play a game against Oklahoma State and Kansas that you do lose.
I mean, Cincinnati, we won 20-6, and we all came away from that saying, "Why didn't we score more points?" It's not like they held the ball for 40 minutes of the 60.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and you're only okay with that game because of the 6.
Yeah,
right? You're
right.
thinking, okay, well, that's,
Yeah,
that's
we
so
weren't
much
really,
better than what
and
we've
you're
been
also
used
thinking,
to.
well, there's two things we were thinking. One, that defensive line was tremendous, we thought, and for Cincinnati. And two, it's early, and you're expecting us to get better.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten better.
No, 34 at Texas, 33 at Kansas, 31 against UCF, where you had to hold on to win that with a knockdown 2-point conversion.
We're a fourth quarter, we're a final drive comeback against Texas, and a 2-point conversion away from losing 4 straight games.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's pretty awful.
You shouldn't be putting yourself, and we talked about it the week before, all the last 3 games, the defenses we played have been in the 100 115
Yep.
on total defense, and we cannot put up points, and it's affecting my happiness, and I don't like it.
Well, but if you're Venables, I mean that stat alone right there against these 100 level defenses, that should be enough to tell you that there's consistency there, right? From an offensive standpoint, and not in a good way. There's a lack of production against subpar defenses, very subpar defenses, going into a conference where you're going to be playing some of the best defenses in the country, some of the best defenses, at least with the top half of the SEC, with the Bamas of the world, with the LSUs of the world, who are going to have just athletes at every single position.
even Texas A&M, who's
Texas
not in that
A&M.
top half. But athlete-wise, they're going to be able to
Yeah.
wreak havoc, potentially. And all of them have good schemes as well. They're well coached.
And what's even worse is our defense has given us short fields
Yes.
time and time and time again. Was it the UCF game where we started the first 4 drives inside plus territory?
First 4 out of 5 drives.
And we had
in plus
one
territory.
touchdown scored inside the plus territory the first 4 drives. And that's not a fluke, because we've done a lot of that. And then the turnover margin outside the last 2 games where we've had a lot of turnovers, but we led the country in turnovers for the first 6 weeks of the season or whatever it was, which more than likely you consider those short fields,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you're getting the ball at least on the minus 40 in. And
Well, regardless,
and
you're
we weren't
flipping
doing anything
the
with it.
field usually, unless
Yeah.
it's a deep ball interception. You're
Right.
flipping the field somewhat.
And it's still nothing to show for it.
Nothing to show for it. Well, Jay has some questions that he wants to ask us on the spot. We have not seen these questions ahead of time.
Yeah,
So,
So
hit us,
these
Jay.
these are. I just want to get you guys' thoughts on where we might be ranked in these categories, in conference only. Where are we in scoring offense? In conference games only.
Second.
And how many? We got 14 teams
Yep.
in offensive scoring.
Offensive scoring in conference games only.
I'm gonna say 9.
I'm going to say 5.
Okay. We're 6th.
Okay.
Do we have the 6th most amount of talent in this league?
Hard no.
Okay. Let's go. That's the only one I'm going to go on with offense. Well, you know what? Screw it. Let's go to rushing offense. Where would we rank?
Oh, my gosh.
These
in
are
yardage?
All, this is all in conference.
So
yardage.
rushing yards per game?
Yep.
11th.
That's a good call. I'd say 11th.
I'm gonna say 7th.
Okay. We're 8th in rushing offense.
No excuse
University
for that.
of Oklahoma.
No excuse for
8th.
that. No excuse for that.
4 of these teams are brand new to the league.
Well, is that in wide receiver rushing
Yeah,
or in
exactly.
running back rushing?
Okay, now I'm going to go to the side
Yeah,
of the ball.
I mean, if you could slice off Dylan Gabriel's huge rushing game against Texas, I wonder what we'd be at.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, you mean Dylan Gabriel ran the ball in a game that we won?
Yeah,
Maybe.
strange.
Did we run him a lot at OSU?
No.
I think
No. Did we run him a whole lot at Kansas?
No.
Ran him a little bit at Kansas,
Just a little.
and it was successful. But let's go to OSU and not run him at all. That sounds like a brilliant plan.
So, mainly why I brought this up was for the next group of numbers here that I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like, and I don't want to, by saying this, I don't want to skew what your thoughts are. Okay, so maybe I'll just ask you first,
Ask
and
us.
then we'll go back to
Ask us.
All right, where would you rank OU in pass defense? Because I actually think our secondary's
Is that
one of the strengths of the team. Passing
so
yards per game
per
allowed,
game against allowed?
in conference.
I'm going to say 8th on that one.
I was going to say 9th.
I'll say 5th.
11th. We were 11th in pass defense. In conference games only.
And a lot of that's come in the last 2 games.
UCF had some
Well,
big
3,
ones
yeah.
too.
Yeah, they had some.
Yeah,
big-
Iowa State had a few big ones too.
yeah.
What about
Yeah.
rush defense?
4th.
4th?
5th.
6th in rush defense. Number 1 is Texas at 87 yards a game.
Now,
We're 6th at 161.
I will say
Double.
in
Double
all
Texas.
I will say in all these, we've only had we have 8 games. We've only had 5 conference games. We don't all have common opponents. The sample size is small and definitely skewed based on who's played whom. So there's a little grain of salt with all of this. However, our talent level,
We have played
above
3 of the better teams in the conference.
Yes.
Yes, I will say that. So,
Well, 4 really. I mean,
Iowa State.
yeah.
yeah.
Texas, Iowa State, Kansas,
Kansas,
and
Oklahoma
OSU.
Oklahoma State, yeah.
All right, total defense.
which is defined as
Passing, rushing,
Yards per
yardage.
game.
Yep.
we have more of a bend don't break.
9th.
7th.
8th.
9th. You've got it. Texas is number 1 at 358, and we're at 429.
Huh.
It's a
9th.
big difference.
But the reason I wanted to bring this up was I find our rankings very interesting because the eyeball really, I feel like we've made a significant defensive improvement.
We definitely have.
But to be 11th in pass defense and 9th in total defense in conference.
Right. Well, if I wanted to be an apologist for the defense, and I do, I would say that's because they can only do so much.
Well, I'm wondering how much more we're on the field than other teams as well.
We're on the field a lot, and we're put in
Yeah.
a lot of difficult situations that should be put away by offense.
Like, what's our time of possession defensively relative to
Or
those
what's
other
our
teams?
offensive time of
And
possession?
what's of our,
Yeah.
our offensive? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I bet we're at probably a 33% offensive possession to 66%.
No, I bet it's not that bad. I bet it's more like of a 60 minute game.
40-60.
I bet that we have the ball 25, an average of 25 minutes a game.
Think so?
If you give me another minute, I can look it up.
So just to bring this up, West Virginia is 5th in the country at time of possession.
It's dangerous.
They maintain it 34 minutes and 52 seconds.
That's dangerous for us. That's definitely dangerous for our offense.
I'm just
too.
going to scroll down because
I've got the time possession for this season right here.
Go.
Go for it.
We are averaging 29:02.
Pretty
so right at
so
50,
half.
50-50 essentially.
Now,
Does not
but
feel that
that's
way.
for the season.
Yep.
And
But
That's
not
nine-
in
we
conference.
might want to look at just in conference if we could.
No, that's in conference that I'm looking. I'm on the Big 12's website.
Okay.
Now, did you select?
this-
Did you
yeah.
select just conference games?
No.
It's a toggle at
I
the
didn't.
top.
No, it says conference stats only.
Okay.
Wow.
But it lists us with 9 games, so I don't know how that's
So,
correct.
there's a
Off to the
you have to
left.
push the button and it resets all the stats.
Okay.
That would be surprising to me, but then again, sometimes at the end of the game we have a lot of possession. We come
I've got
away
us
with nothing.
this one has 28-17
Okay.
in conference.
In conference. So, well, that's not good.
No, that puts
If-
us at 95th.
Yeah, that's not good. And that'd be fine if your offensive efficiency was so great that your score.
Yeah,
Then it doesn't matter.
That's the take to it.
But
for
it
sure.
does matter because we're not scoring,
Give.
or we're attempting a field goal, or something that is not what you need to do to put teams away.
I'd like to know our conversion rate per possession. How often are we scoring?
Yeah, that's
when we
fallen
have
off.
The ball,
That's
right?
completely fallen off.
It can't
yeah.
be. It can't be very good.
Well,
I'd
not with the scoring that we
probably
put
say
up.
what, like 60% of the time, maybe.
Maybe, and that would include the Arkansas State game and everything.
So I don't know. That's almost a score.
It's
per
almost
drive
every
there.
stat you break down tells the tale of us underachieving who we are, what we can do, and what we want to do, and realistically want to do. I don't think it's unrealistic expectations. It'd be different if we had lost the SMU game, the Texas game, etc., and you're saying, well, what did you expect out of this team? This team is good enough to win every game that we've played. The only game that we maybe escaped with a victory that we didn't deserve was Texas. And we still had a chance to put them away if we do what we need to do in the second and third quarter
Yep.
We're 11th out of 14 teams in time possession in conference games only.
in the conference.
28-18.
That's not going to get it done with what we've got offensively. And with the way we possess the ball, we are not back again to the days of Lincoln Riley where it's 3 plays and a touchdown. We're 3 plays and a punt. Or 3 plays and a bad attempt at a fourth down.
Yep.
That won't work. So if you're going to throw the ball sideways and backwards, if you're going to run between the tackles, you've got to have time of possession working in your favor.
We lead
And
the
don't.
conference in penalties as well at 42. We're in first place. Imagine
And
that.
so many of those are
That's
just mental
really
mistakes of
bonehead
jumping off
penalties.
sides,
Yep.
which you're going to have more exposure to that when you're possessing the ball a lot and you're running a real precise tempo type of game that's not being very successful. All of that compounds. We look at so
that
many.
on top of all the motion that we run,
Yep.
on top of all the gimmicky BS that's out there that Levy has and instills and doesn't seem to preach the discipline portion of that to say, if we are running this tempo, you need to be extra aware of the snap count and when we're going to snap the ball type of stuff. So,
I have
yeah.
a question about the defense. What has happened to our defensive line the last 2 games?
Oh, well, I think there's been an injury or two, and it also at linebacker, that's hurt the defensive line. So
We're not getting the push on passing plays that we did
I
earlier in the
think-
year.
Yeah, no, I think because we're not, and I don't see the blitz packages that I would like to see,
Yeah.
but I don't think we're able to do it because of injuries, and maybe because of time and wear and tear. They're out there a lot, and not. Here's another thing time of possession doesn't tell you. Time of possession doesn't tell you stressful time of possession. When you're out there on the field for a long drive, even if you hold them to a field goal, and you're back out on the field in a minute and a half of game time, which happened definitely in the Oklahoma State game, and I think in the Kansas game, several games, that's a critical 10-minute stretch or so where you're exhausted, and your ability to get pressure is going to be completely thwarted because you're trying to catch your breath. So it's not just the time of possession, it's that time of possession in real critical situations where you forced your defense back out onto the field to do that all over again. All of that leads into the West Virginia game and how we feel about it. They run the ball really well. Defensive line is going to be critical to stop that run. They have, we've just mentioned, time of possession dominance. That's going to really challenge our offense a lot. I almost worry that they're going to be in a position where they're going to think we've got to possess the ball. And it's almost like it's one of those things where if you give a group, like you could look at it in industry or whatever you want to do, and you give a team, all right, here's your objective and here's what you've got to do. If you tell a line of manufacturing workers, we want no defects, they will be as slow as Christmas to get product out the door and make sure there's no defects. You've got to say, it's not just one goal you're trying to achieve here, guys. We're not just trying to get time of possession. We're not just trying to get yardage. We're trying to get points, meaningful points. We're trying to put teams away. It's a full package. We need the full package here. And that's not what we're achieving in any regards, and it doesn't seem like that's the objective we're seeking series in and series out.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched a down of West Virginia football this year. That being said, I think something that just holds true and something that we've not been great at.
Didn't you watch them against Houston?
Oh, I did watch that one.
I watched that one too.
You're right, I did. It's a tough watch for a couple of us.
Was that a Thursday night or something like that?
That was your
the Hail Mary.
It was a Hail Mary night.
Yeah, God.
Something that we haven't been very good at least the last couple of weeks. We haven't been able to get off the field as effectively as what we need to be doing on third down. We've been in quite a few situations in third and medium and even some third and longs where it feels like the old days. And Steve, a lot of that goes back to, I think, what you're talking about, injuries, wear and tear, being tired, being on the field a lot. That takes a toll. I think you can go back to the OSU game, though, and look, I mean, there was a really good kind of breakdown between OSU's last score of the first half and their first score in the second half of how well our defense did do. They were on the field a lot. They let some long, lengthy drives occur, but they got off the field when they had to on fourth down for turnovers on downs and other stuff like that. So I want to see those stops happen early in the drive, as opposed to letting West Virginia possess the ball, manage the clock on their terms. I want to see that first quarter UCF dominance where we come out with our hair on fire, we're getting the offense the ball back, and then to take that extra step and go score the football. Because, like you said, it can't be one or the other. You've got to have both. That UCF game could have been 28-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah, the
and
defense played.
It was 7-0 going into or late in the first. I'm not sure what the score was, but we were dominant on the defensive side of the ball, and our offense was doing them no favors by putting them back on the field time and time again. So the way you phrased it, Steve, in terms of just a full package performance, it's going to take that in this game, and it's going to take that in every single game from here on out, and we can say it till we're blue in the face. Complementary football has to be a thing. You've got to, with the defensive dominance, you've got to have offensive production, and that's something that we have fallen short on half of this season, it feels like.
Yeah, especially in the back half of the season.
And looking back to last year's West Virginia game, that was one of our biggest complaints was the offense going 3 and out, and then West Virginia running 5 minutes off the clock, and it really killed us at the end of the game when they literally just had their way down the field on us and held, I want to say it was almost like a 6-minute drive to kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, it was a painful drive. And I think that there's something that they've gotten better at, that we have dialed up knowing when we have to be aggressive. I would not say they're perfect yet. I still think, if I'm going to criticize Venables and his defense and Ted Roof and his defense, I would say that they sometimes count on traditional football of we're just going to stop you and get the ball back that way, or basically force you to turn the ball over on downs in a critical situation, whereas, and that was really a problem last year. This year we've been much better about, okay, we've got to be aggressive because it's go for broke. You either stop them or you let them score, so you get the ball back and you can do something. And that's happened, but our offense hasn't been able to produce anything out of it. They did sort of at Texas. They definitely did when we let them score at Kansas. That was smart. We just
But
weren't
Texas
able
was
to
a
come
game
down.
We had a lead that we could have put away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we at Kansas came down and had what was a substandard last-minute drive that ends in a short Hail Mary that should have been a better shot at the end zone than what it was, and could have been a closer field goal in that situation if we would have gotten close enough. Obviously, at Oklahoma State, it ended ridiculously short of opportunity there, getting stopped the way we did. I'd like to look back at that play because I've looked back at I've seen and remember quite a few where, not necessarily at the end of the game, but at a fourth down situation where we're doing that stuff where we throw it just to the sticks, or like at OSU, short of the sticks. And it's not just the one guy that Dylan threw to. Everybody's running their route short. It's not like we have anybody threatening. Whereas I'd rather have 4 receivers that are all 10 yards downfield, 5 yards past the sticks, and you're trying to find which one to throw to, versus take your pick of a guy who's 50-50 if he's even going to get the first down if you catch the ball. That's a frustrating play call and play strategy in my mind that they're running. So I don't know that. Obviously, this is just criticism upon criticism, but I think that's where we are, and I think that's going to be the tale of where we're headed over these next 3 games, which we should win. We're 12.5-point favorites, not for nothing. We should be better than West Virginia. We should win against West Virginia.
I think if we come back healthy on the defensive side of the ball, even if we're a little depleted, there's no reason that line that you just mentioned, the 12.5, should not be attainable. I don't know. It sounds like such a big score right now, or such a big spread, because we've been so poor lately. You got to hope a help. And what's weird is, and it really kind of reared its head over the last couple of weeks, but we're not deep at cornerback. I think Woody Washington's been kind of exposed as someone who is okay.
Yeah.
But if you start throwing at him, he's either going to give you a pass interference, or you're going to be able to go over the top and catch it over him. If Gentry Williams is out, that's our best corner right now, and he got a little bit abused in the last game as well. But if he goes out, they're just going to pick on either side of the field, whether it be Kenai Walker, or we saw some Josiah Wagner last week.
Colby has
In
his
crunch time.
problems.
Yeah, Dolby has been.
Dolby, yeah.
And we've been running him more at like the cheetah position with rotating him and McCullough out. So I don't even know if they see him as a true corner anymore.
I think
So-
to a compliment to the defense, I think they've realized, even though we criticize it sometimes in game, they realize that they are exposed deep. And so they are erring on the side of allowing more of a cushion and allowing more things to happen in front of them, just not to get beat deep, which is good. If you understand your weakness and you're scheming around it, that's good. So I'm, again, being an apologist a little bit for the defense, but I think I don't have a lot of problems with the defense. I don't have a lot of fears
It's showing
there.
a little bit of youth at our linebacker position, especially with Stutzman being out. Like, we saw some linebackers who couldn't keep up in coverage last week between
Kanik.
McKenzie and especially with Kanik, who went off the field for a while. But you got to hope linebackers can start stepping up their coverage in the middle of the field as well.
What do you guys think about if Stutzman's 90 to 95%, him moving back to the spot that Kanik has and playing Kip Lewis,
I don't know how you don't play
Stutzman
Kip.
and Lewis?
I don't know
Because
how you
The
don't
way
play
Kip
Kip.
has been
Kanik has
playing,
been
I'm
missing
in.
tackles horribly for the last 4 or 5 games.
He looks a little lost.
And Kip Lewis has a occasional busts, but overall has played really well.
And he makes up for it in his speed
Yeah,
as well.
and so I think Stutzman and Lewis are your two best linebackers currently, and that Canick just needs, I don't know, does he need more time, I guess? I don't know.
I guess. I mean, I to the
I
question
agree.
that you ask, I think that should be your 1-2 this week. I think you put Stutzman back into that will, and you let Kip run the mic, and you roll with it. And if it's not working, you have something that you've been running all season
You can go back
to
to
go
Canick,
back to.
yeah.
So I mean, you've got the option and the depth there. That position is one that we are deep in right now. I mean, you have between Canick and
I mean, you got four guys
Stutzman,
who played two spots.
Yeah, McKenzie and Lewis.
I don't know how deep that is. That's really only too deep.
Yeah, it's a legit too
Well, it's
deep. but
deeper
I
than
mean,
some other areas. My idea, vision-wise, where I think we're headed, if they have their druthers, what I think they would like to do is have the cheetah position and Canick be your total disruptors and have everyone else playing lockdown and doing their job and getting lots of tackles and everything. And those two guys are just wreaking havoc. They're not really, what we've called upon Canick to do is be more traditional and just play a position. Whereas I think he would rather have a guy like Canick and a guy, whoever's in the cheetah position, be just total disruptors who are just running free, blitzing, and doing stuff that really gives the quarterback
Or
a lot of
spying.
spying,
Yeah.
a lot of problems, not being able to do what he wants to do because everybody else is just playing their position, and we're not quite there yet to have everybody in a Gentry-like position of locking it down, getting it done, Stutzman there getting it done, and that'll free up. You never know who's going to be the guy that leads the team in tackles in a situation like that. It could be that they're so freaked out about what Canick and a cheetah are doing that then Stutzman runs free. And maybe in the successful times we've had, that's what Stutzman's been doing and why he's been so successful. I don't know. Very kind of head-scratching. One more thing on defense. Stutzman left off of the latest cut for the Butkus Award, which I take as a little bit of a snub. He, I believe, has more tackles for loss than anybody on that list.
It's a big snub. He has better stats than how many guys were on the final? Was it 15? He had better stats than 7 or 8 of those 15.
Yeah.
and with 1.5 less games
yeah,
played.
that is shocking to me that they left him off.
Me too. I feel like the only thing I take as a real positive to give it a homer spin would be, hey, if that helps him come back for another year and solidify himself, then more power to it. That's going to be awesome because I think very highly of what he's achieved and the strides he's made. Well, let's talk about some predictions, and let's start with the locks of the week.
The realest deal, locks of the week.
And, of course, the realest deal locks of the week are brought to us by 5 Star Concrete. David and Josh, local business servicing the metro area from patios, sidewalks, driveways, shops, and more. Give them a call or text them at 405-306-3014. Look them up on Facebook at 5 Star Concrete. They're in the show notes. They do a tremendous job. They give you some great deals on concrete work. So, locks of the week. We've got a sort of a mixed bag here in terms of how we've done last week, and it really tells the tale for the entire season somewhat. So I, again, am awful at this. I'm at 38%. I was 0-3 last week. Connor, very strong overall, 55%, but you were 0-3 last
first
week.
0-3 of the season.
Jay, 45%, so you and I both underwater a little bit. You were 1-2, so a little more respectable. Lucas, 2-1 last week for a 58% leading the charge. It's an upside-down world when Lucas's locks are winning.
I'm going to try to get 65 for the end of the year.
Oh, nice.
Calling my shot.
You're going to get to
I
65?
don't know the math on it.
You want me to help you with that?
Nope.
That's going to be tough.
I'm not a math guy.
That's going to be tough, buddy. Okay. Well, let's start it off and see what we can do. I'm gonna lead the charge, and those of you that are fading me and making a lot of money, then here I'll make sure to tell you who the other side of these are. I've got Kansas State giving 20.5 to Baylor. So I've got Kansas State as the lock. That means that you guys should take Baylor. Florida State giving 14.5 against Miami, Florida. So take Miami. And Louisville, 20.5 against Virginia. So Virginia would be the bet for those who are fading me. Connor, who you got?
I've got Bama giving 10.5 against Kentucky. Michigan giving 4.5 against Penn State.
That's kind of a game of the week situation.
Game of the
right
week.
there.
I probably wouldn't have picked that if it was a night game in Happy Valley. I think they're going to do their whiteout this week against Michigan, but it's the holy grail of prime time. It's big noon kickoff. So I don't trust Penn State to deliver as much in the day game. And then I'm turning us around. It's a turnaround week for all of us. Especially for OU. I've got OU giving 12.5 against West Virginia.
The Mountaineers going down. All right, I like it. Well, Lucas, you're our leader, so what do you got?
I'll tell you what I've got. I've got Kansas minus 3.5 against Texas Tech. That line seems a little funny to me, but that's usually the ones you lose on.
Is that at Tech?
Texas Tech has not played very well at all this
No, it's at
season.
Kansas.
I think it's at Kansas.
Been a big disappointment.
I've got LSU minus 13.5 against Florida. I think the Gators are terrible. And I really wanted to take James Madison, but that line is so high. I think it's like 25.
Did you see they petitioned the NCAA? They want to get into a bowl game.
They deserve it.
They definitely deserve it.
The rule that they can't do anything for 2 years after coming up is
BS.
stupid.
It's unreal.
If it was the other way around where a team dropped from FBS to FCS, that's totally understandable.
Who is the NCAA protecting with that rule?
I
don't
have no
understand.
idea.
Are they
It's
protecting
vested interest.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
That's
it's
all
crazy.
it is.
So I didn't take that one.
Corrupt
Who I've
organization.
been riding for a while. But I did go with Liberty minus 13.5 against Old Dominion.
Liberty's a quiet 9-0.
Jay, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to go against Connor, and I'm going to say Penn State wins straight up.
Wow. Challenging Connor.
There's too much.
But you would no whoa. You're not saying you're saying you'll take the 4.5.
I'm taking the 4.5,
Okay.
but they're going to win straight up.
Okay.
There's just too much going on with the Michigan program. There's too much outside noise.
I think they are thriving on
Michigan has played nobody. Nobody. And
That is
Penn
very
State
true.
has one of the best, if not the best, rush defenses in the country. And quite frankly, Franklin needs this game.
Are they going to change their signs?
Yeah, I was
for
just
this
about
game?
to ask.
I
Surely.
don't know.
that. No,
Surely
Connor
they did.
Stallions isn't there anymore.
But he's
Yeah, but they
already
still scouted
he's
them
already scouted
previously,
him.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think Penn State is just in a must-win game, and I think Michigan's been a little overvalued.
You
by
know how
beating
much
a bunch of crap
you talk about
teams.
conspiracies with officials and everything else. You talk about something that would make the life of the Big Ten easier. If Michigan would roll off a couple of losses,
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about any of this crap. What
My
else you
next
got?
pick is going to be Oregon over USC. Is it 14.5?
It's 14.5.
Oregon
Name your score. I want
is significantly better, or the better team than anyone USC has faced this year.
Yeah,
And
a complete team too.
yes, Washington, who beat USC by 10 last week.
And beat Oregon.
Yeah, but I do think Oregon's better than Washington. Washington cannot run the football, and gashed USC.
What kind of
for like
score are you thinking in
300
that
yards.
game? How high is Oregon going to score?
50s.
They've got a new defensive
Keep in
coordinator.
mind, I believe it was something like 100 years ago today or something like that Heisman led Georgia Tech to a 222-0 victory over Cumberland College. Do you think it's going to be like that?
No, I think Oregon's defense is significantly better than Washington's, and
The over-under in that game is 73.5.
I don't know that they're as explosive, but it'll be more dominant than what it looked like from Washington last week. So
Dan Lanning's not going to hold any punches.
I'll
either.
go something along the lines of 42-24, something like that
Okay.
for that game. And then my last one, I don't like this.
You can audible.
It's all right. I'm going with it. The Oklahoma State line
Yeah.
at UCF.
Two-
Just
two
makes
and a half?
no sense.
It
to
doesn't
me.
make any sense to me.
It makes
either.
no
It's
sense.
the hangover, I think.
I agree, but
Yes.
they're like a terrible, terrible rush defense.
OSU won the Super Bowl last week, though. Haven't you heard?
I know.
According to OSU fans, they are now Bedlam champions forever, even though they only won 20 of 117 times.
118.
118 games. They won 20. But now they're the all-time Bedlam champs.
Congrats.
I mean, it's either Oak State or West Virginia.
How much does Ollie Gordon rush for in that game?
Another
mean,
200-yard game.
Does he beat? No.
He
Does he
should
break
rush
300?
He should rush for 350.
He may break 300.
But the way Vegas knows their stuff, there's something there.
All right. So you got Oklahoma State giving 2.5 to UCF.
It could be all the injuries, you know. OSU had 17 injuries against us.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. Those guys
No,
just,
those are faking.
They just faked it so they could stop our tempo.
That's
Okay.
true.
No,
That's
maybe
true.
Ollie Gordon's, Vegas knows something we don't, and they're going to hold him out so that his hip gets better or something. But
Well, let's talk a little bit about our predictions for the OU score. So this one might be a little divisive. I don't know. 12.5-point favorites. We obviously are rooting for OU to do as good as possible. We're not rooting for. I've heard some talk from some friends saying, do we need to root for a tight game or a bad game or even a loss so we get rid of Levy?
No.
No, we're not of that mindset at all. We're too healthy of a program that's necessary. And in fact, I think there's a good chance that we have, and I'd love to have a situation where we roll off 3 straight victories and we backdoor our way into the Big 12 title. It'd be awesome to play either Texas and win or Oklahoma State and win. And we're having a tough conversation about Levy or whatever. But it starts with the West Virginia game. And here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that we come out and we find a way to put points on the board. I've got OU 49, West Virginia 30.
49.
49. We're going to
Wow.
score more points than we have against anybody since Iowa State. We're going to now. There may be some defensive scores in that. I've got 2 scooping scores and 3 safeties. 49-30. Connor, what do you got?
Got 38-24 OU.
Barely covering, but they cover. All right, Lucas, what do you got?
I've got 35-24 OU.
Not covering.
Not covering. I've seen it so many games this year. We can't score. So that's where I got 35.
All right, Jay, what do you got?
31-27.
Ooh,
OU.
tight.
The 4 of us will all be there
We're all going to be there,
in our little
we
warm jackets,
cuddling up,
and
trying to stay warm.
booties and gloves, watching OU just stress us out as much as possible.
So, do you think that, a 31-27 game, the narrative doesn't change then?
Now we're pissed
In
after
that.
that.
We're frustrated and pissed, and we're worried about everything else yet to come.
I almost
If you're
went
right.
31-30.
We may be pissed with your score, Steve. Who knows? The way
Honestly,
the
so
year's
we
going.
might be. We might be. I mean, you might look at it and say, you still left points on the board. Or if I'm right and we get some, not necessarily defensive scores, I was being facetious, but if our defense puts us in a position with short fields like we've seen a lot through this season, and we settle for a couple of field goals, that's going to be very frustrating as well. So that'll be something to look forward to see what we actually can do. Can we actually? What is the over/under in that game, by the way?
In our game,
Yeah,
over/under is.
I bet it's about 55.
It is. Bear with me. 58.5.
There you go. So I've got us covering the over/under. Most of us do. So we'll see. Jay, you're right on top of
I'm
it,
right at it,
basically.
yeah.
Good job. Well, we'll see. We're going to be there. It's going to be interesting. Anything else to cover? If those of you that are listening, thank you so much. I hope you aren't tired of us ranting and raving, but it's going to continue. I'm afraid we're going to continue to be griping and saying we deserve better and we should be better, and
It's got to continue until we are better.
absolutely.
I demand. I mean, a lot of people. I've seen a lot of stuff saying, "Oh, we would have taken 10-2 at the beginning of the season, no questions
I
asked."
wouldn't have.
You would not have.
I would have.
I would have taken
Not
it
like
with,
this.
But and I think that's where it goes to is everyone would have taken that until we go and we beat Texas.
Good, until you're 7-0.
And you're 7-0, and you have the world at your fingertips with what seemed like a clear path, not only to a conference championship, but what should be or what could have been a playoff berth, and then to be where we're at tonight with all of our grievances, with the regression in the offense, it has to get better.
Well,
from
let's
here
talk
on
about
out.
that then. We periodically come back to what we predict our record's going to be for the regular season. I'll say at 7-2, we're going to improve to 10-2. That's as much, not just aspirational. That's my demand on what it takes to resuscitate, revive, get this season back to where it needs to be respectable. I'm going to say 10-2 is a very achievable goal. That's my prediction of what will be. Connor, what do you think?
I agree. 10-2 is what I would say.
Lucas, Jay, what do you guys got?
I got 9-3. I think we stub our toe in one of the next 3 games. Don't know which one. It just feels like it's there.
Yeah, I'll revise mine to 9-3 as well.
All right.
I think I started the preseason off at 9-3, but
I
think
we
you
were
started
10
at 10-2.
10
did I start 10-2?
Yeah.
Lucas and I started at 10,
Now
9-3.
I'll openly admit after the Texas win at 6-0, I mean,
See, I looked at our schedule from the get-go and said 9-3 would be pretty disappointing, actually. It would be like the bare minimum.
I do think this will be disappointing.
And then revise that a little bit with the quality of the opponents, the way the conference shook out. We avoided Baylor. We avoided Texas Tech. We thought that was a good thing to avoid. And turns
Avoided
out those
Kansas
are not
State.
very good teams. Kansas State probably would be better to play Kansas State than Kansas at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
So you got to give some revision to that. So my 10-2 now is a better 10-2 than it would have been preseason. But we're not there yet, boys. We'll see.
It needs to be 10-2.
It needs to be 10-2. It really does. And pressing for better. I want to be disappointed in the 2 losses, not disappointed in worse than that, obviously. And we all feel that way. Well, we'll be here for the post game. Tune in. Remember our sponsor, Fluke Luke Fishing. Go check him out on YouTube. Lots of great fishing tips. He'll help you catch a big one. So until next time, Boomer.
Sooner.